Welcome to a Flemmy Marshall Pruett podcast. Here in our Week in Sports Cars show with my brother, my friend, my co-pilot, co-host, and just lots of things with the letter CO dash in front of them, that being Graham Goodwin, editor of dailysportscar.com, voice, comms, ELMS, WEC, Asian Le Mans Series. If it has Le Mans Series in it in any ways, you have heard this knucklehead speaking into your ear on the good old television, and then, but quite some time before that, writing them good word stories on DSC and any other places that will take them. Nonetheless, Graham Goodwin, we are recording this a little bit later than intended in the week, simply because I did not have a voice to use to record until this morning. So we asked our dear listeners to send in their Q&A, not for a flappy gum show, just you and I running our mouths about various topics, but indeed the original underpinnings of the Week in Sports Cars, that being listener Q&A driven. So we have enough stuff to do at least an hour to an hour and a half. My voice, it's virtual fuel tank. It's not in the green. It's starting to drop into the yellow, maybe close to the red. So since we do not want any kind of post-race penalty for surpassing VFT limits, I think we might do about a half hour before my voice raises the white flag. So why don't we do this? Why don't we pay homage to those who support the show? Come right back, get into your Q&A. Time to say a big thank you to our show partners on the Marshall Pruett podcast, starting with Pfaff Technologies, build-to-print composites manufacturing company. They're specializing in medium to large-scale automotive, motorsports, and military applications. Visit pfafftechnologies.com. It's Pfaff Technologies.com to learn more about their services and how they can benefit your business. Next, it's the Justice Brothers, makers of premium additives, lubricants, and cleaners, and servicing the automotive and motorsports industries for more than 85 years, with victories in all of the biggest North American motor races, including the Indianapolis 500, the 24 Hours of Daytona. The Justice Brothers products are truly race-proven. Learn about their vast history and range of offerings at justicebrothers.com. If you're fond of awesome motor racing collectibles, including Pfaff Motorsports McLaren gear and goodies, pay a visit to torontomotorsports.com. And finally, we have a new online merchandise home for the podcast, thepruettstore.com, for all the show stickers, models, the racing memorabilia I'm trying to sell and put towards our fund to buy a house is now live and rocking. Thepruettstore.com. Graham Goodwin, I think in this order that makes most sense to me, I am going to read questions submitted and let you do the answering, because I think that'll save the good old vocal virtual fuel tank here.
That's a better way of doing it.
Well, also, you don't want to hear my voice, so there we go. I was told by someone else this morning that I sounded like Darth Vader. I know.
Not that evil.
Well,
close.
Fair enough. I do have my Darth Vader underoos on, though, but that's a very different conversation. Why don't we open things up? We are on the topic of Porsche, and this, of course, spanning good old WEC, IMSA, you name it. Zenyon says, do you have any news, Graham, to share regarding the Proton competition IMSA GTP entry, which, according to the Porsche United Champions press release, is not part of their 963 lineup? Have they pulled out of their commitments in the class? Have they possibly switched to another manufacturer, referring to Proton, or did Porsche just forget their entry? And that's an interesting one to cover off, right? Because Porsche United Champions tends to be about factory-related stuff.
Yep.
And here, who they might assign as drivers, Proton being an independent team, though.
Speak regularly to Christian Reed at Proton Competition. The briefest of conversations with him in Sepang, Malaysia, where we were last weekend for the opening doubleheader weekend for the Asian Le Mans Series. That's completed in February in the UAE with 2 back-to-back meetings. I think we've got questions a little later on about relationship between factory entries, customer cars, etc. But let's cover this one as best we can at the moment. Since we asked for the call for questions, we have had the Rolex 24 provisional entry list, and Proton are on that entry. Now, what we don't yet know is whether or not that is a one-off, whether or not they remain part of the Michelin Endurance Challenge, or whether or not they step into full season mode. Probably the easiest way of dealing with this and the later questions is to say a lot of this is to do with Porsche. This is to do with Porsche, I think, having realized that the growth in the numbers of customer cars, because obviously we've got JDC Miller, we have one of these for WEC and IMSA from Proton last year. It was made clear by Christian Reed he was looking to double up in WC this coming year. We know that's not going to happen. There are others that were interested. Of course, we had the 2 Jota cars in WC last year. It's fair to say, I think one of the big driving factors behind this uncertainty is that Porsche don't want to support that number of cars moving forward. It is an impact on their supply chain, on their ability to put boots on the ground, not just in terms of drivers, but also the technical support, engineering support, the part support that comes with this. So remains to be seen exactly what Proton will or will not be doing in IMSA. We've got confirmation of a single car in WC for season, not 2. We've got confirmation as far as the provisional list is concerned at the moment about a single car for the Rolex 24. It is possible it could be the same car. The next stop for the Proton 963 effort would be Qatar about a month later. So it's possible it could be one car and one car only. Have not yet had the opportunity to check with Christian on exactly what we've seen on that list, MP. But there is a degree of hashtag what's this space on this front, but it's not for the one or the kind of drive for Proton to want to do it. Everything seems to point at the moment at a reluctance from Porsche to up the level of support that they are willing to give in engineering terms across more than one car for a full season.
Yeah, the other big thing here too is having seen a pretty awesome investment in personnel and time and presence by Proton this past season at IMSA, not just GTP, but obviously also within the GT ranks with Mustang. Yeah, sure hope this isn't something where we are staring at declining presence for Proton, where we say, hey, it's great to have you a little, for a brief period of time, significantly invested in both forms of IMSA's, major forms of racing, prototypes and GTs. And now, are we looking at what feels like something close to a one and done? Do we just get you, again, they've obviously switched over to Porsche here on the GTD Pro side. We know, looking at the Daytona entry list. But bottom line, love having Proton, just hoping that this is not something where we don't see as much of them this coming season. But we will have to buckle in and be prepared for that. Let's see. Miggins Motorsport, one of our favorite long-standing questionnaires. Yes, says gentlemen, Jensen Button and Cadillac for 2025. Confirmed? What can you tell us?
Correct. It is. I mean, the Cadillac Team Jota or Hertz Team Cadillac.
Hertz Jota Cadillac Team Button Bourdais, I think, is the official.
Yes. But yes, the answer is yes, he is one of the carryovers from the Hertz Team Jota Porsche effort of last season, and parts of a rejuvenated 2-car Caddy effort for the coming year for the FI World Endurance Championship. So, yep, JB will be back, and everything points to the fact he's looking forward to that challenge. Not sure he really enjoyed the Porsche. maybe just a bigger fan of great big roaring V8s. But either way, all sorts of switcheroo in the hypercar and GTP driving marketplace. So more of that came into focus this week with BMW confirming their final driver lineups across both the WEC and IMSA as well. Kevin Magnussen back into top class sports car action. A lot more crossover between the two squads for the coming year, and a couple of drivers stepping down from the top class BMW efforts. So Conor Filippi and Jimmy Crone both leaving that program for the time being at the very least. So big changes across the board, but JB stays, albeit with a different car underneath him.
Let me ask this, Graham, because this stood out to me. Maybe I missed it, so please tell me I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I've seen manufacturers each year around this time. We prepare for the thank you for your service press releases. Maxime Martin comes to mind here with BMW. Name the major manufacturers. This is often a Germanic thing around this time where Porsche has its Night of Champions. You get the announcement of who's in, who's out. Hey, here's the new young driver, new this, new that. But also there's some farewells, it seems, on an annual basis. Obviously, again, I could have missed it in the press release, but not seeing what I would say I expected for Connor and Jesse in that kind of larger standalone press release. Again, if those went out and I missed them, it's on me, but I will admit, knew the Connor thing was happening for a while, and I'm been hearing, I don't know if it's true, but been hearing that he might be part of JDC's lineup. I hope he is, or whomever's, because the kid's phenomenal. I say kid, he's a grown man now, but I've known him since he was a puppy in junior open wheel racing. But I'm hoping he lands in a good space. He certainly deserves to be in a great space in GTP or wherever else. But I'll admit, I was a little bit surprised to have either missed or maybe they just didn't happen at all. The same kind of thank you for your many years of service type things for those two. Did I miss that, Graham, or was that just omitted? I don't know.
I think you didn't. What we don't know, because the announcement was not their factory drivers across the board, it was their hypercar and GTP drivers. Whether or not either or both are retained to do more in GT is a different matter. There is a high-profile GT program, of course, in IMSA without full driver lineups against it at the moment. So whether or not we might see those names there's a bit of remain to be seen, isn't there? So, but I do tend to agree with you. It has been a more recent trend that perhaps other manufacturers have forgotten that loyalty actually goes both ways. And when we've seen often long-standing servants to manufacturer programs either stepping down their own volition or being rested, steps down by their employers, thank you and good night isn't that hard to say, is it? And it's a shame when we don't see it. There's been some pretty high-profile examples of that in recent years. And here's the point. The fans notice that. And that's a key part of what this is all about as well, brand loyalty. If you've got brand loyalty from a fan base and brand loyalty from your drivers, you should be respecting both of those things. And you know what? Thank you's not a really tough word to say or to write. And I'd like to see it pretty much every time, unless there's a good reason why not.
Yeah, see. All right, let's move on to McLaren. I'll read off the three questions here and pick from the queries as desired. Aiden T06 says, in regards to IMSA, where do McLaren go from here, losing both of their teams within a year? Our pal intern at Unpaid One Intern says, should McLaren be worried that two teams, Inception and Pfaff, have cut ties in such a short period of time in GTD? And then Airplanes and EMS, Adam Joseph says, Pfaff dropping hints left and right. Any update, or are we all waiting until their livery reveal on Christmas? So with IMSA,
we know the answer to that one.
Yeah, with IMSA revealing the Roar entry list, I think, this week, you and I spoke earlier in the week when I had a voice you were like, what is going on with the million different press releases from IMSA teams right now? And it was like, well, this is kind of the time where they know their stuff's about to be revealed. So I haven't seen a press release from Pfaff, but we do know that on the entry list, they have indeed listed a Lamborghini. And we kind of knew that's where things were headed. I am told, we'll see if it's true, but I am told we could be having a freaking plaid Lamborghini, which is amazing. But we got questions, which is true. IMSA boasts having, almost 20 manufacturers. It looks like McLaren's coming off the board right now, unless there's a GT4 based McLaren running in Michelin Pilot Challenge. But McLaren is believed to have some bigger stuff in the works for the future. But tell us what happened here and when and where we might see McLaren back.
Well, let's deal with the Lamborghini part first, because not only did they list the car in GTD Pro, they listed the drivers. So it's 3 Lamborghini factory drivers for the Rolex 24: Andrea Caldarelli, Marco Mappelli, Jordan Pepper, and the old Mayor of Hinchtown is going to be aboard once more for that effort. So that's going to be good stuff for Pfaff. As for McLaren,
in GTD Pro. So, and
GTD
just
Pro.
To clarify, so we can assume GTD Pro, Lamborghini, 3 factory Lamborghini drivers. Again, none of this has been announced. Don't take this as fact, but if we just assume in the GTD Pro category, where factories compete and often align themselves with teams, and seeing Pfaff has both a Lamborghini, we don't see Iron Lynx in there with a Lamborghini, and three factory drivers from Lamborghini, it would suggest the Pfaffertons and the Lamborghinis might be working together. So, but not confirmed.
I think absolutely so, and that's good news. That should that be confirmed, good news for Pfaff, the fine people, Steve Bortolotti and his fabulous crew. We'll come on to talk about.
I like most of the rest of them. Bortolotti, not so much. Just kidding. Good friend of the show.
Yeah. We'll come and talk about some other fine Canadians very shortly in the show. But that's good news. The other bit of good news that, by the way, we didn't have in time for questions is a quite fantastic lineup in another of what is 15 GTD Pro entries for the Rolex 24, a record, and that is a Trackhouse with TF Sport Corvette. Now, you and I have been talking about the prospects for this for a little wee while, MP, but the driver lineup in GTD Pro, the first superstar we've got to talk about is a bronze driver, Ben Keating, who yet again, I think it's 5 times in 6 years now, is listed against 2 cars for the Rolex 24. But aside from that, what he is, well, the shiniest of bronzes. Connor Zilic, Scotty McLaughlin, and Shane van Gisbergen. And all I can tell you is when we posted that story yesterday evening, shared it across social media, it was like a hot knife through butter of people's consciousness around this race. A huge response to the announcement of that effort. And all of a sudden, looks like we've got another entry for people to get excited about.
Very much so. We have consecutive V8 Supercar champs lined up, both Kiwis as well. Former rivals, like real rivals. So that to me is fascinating. I reached out to Scott today, left a voicemail, and then also just saw it is his 5th wedding anniversary, which would be a perfect reason to not take my call. So congrats to Scotty. He and his wife, they're obviously new parents here just recently as well. So many cool things happening for Scotty. But yeah, the fact that we have the Giz and we have Scotty Mack together, like that is in the same car. That is so wild, having watched them beat the living bleep out of each other in supercars before they've both moved on. And I mean, we're not speaking out of turn by any means in saying, you know, two of the greatest supercar drivers of the most recent era. I mean, Mark Whincup before them, preceding them for sure, you know, all time. And yeah, hard to put too many above Whincup here.
Jamie Whincup.
Sorry.
Jamie Whincup.
I don't know why. I was thinking Mark Winterbottom. What did I say? Anyways, new guy. But yeah, Jamie Whincup. Hard to put too many in front of him in the 2000s. But nonetheless, that to me is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Also,
it's going to be. I think it's going to be a big fun effort. Big fun effort.
And the other thing which you can speak to, I realize the topic here is McLaren. I'm also realizing we're not going to get through a bunch today, but love the fact that instead of tasking, if they were able, a Pratt and Miller or an AWA to try and run an additional Corvette to house these successors to Mark Whincup. I love that TF Sport has been brought in, and obviously, you know, Ben with great relationship and such there, but I love to see TF being tasked with putting this entry together, supported by WeatherTech, and not only the series sponsor, but also I believe have been and will continue to be Shane's primary sponsor with Trackhouse in NASCAR. So speak to that side of getting TF just further involved here with doing stuff across the good old pond.
Absolutely right. And to finish the answer, which the question we asked in the first place, McLaren. Well, not a surprise that McLaren are in the midst of a major revamp of their management team. We've got a full new management setup at McLaren Racing, with new head of motorsport, a new sporting director, one Rob Bell. Yes, that Rob Bell, and a new technical director. So I can tell you from conversations with a couple of people in that fine place, they're fully well aware at the moment of some of the shortcomings of their setup, and they're in the process of fixing it. That's before we come on to the increasing certainty that we will be hearing at some point in early to middle 25 rather, of confirmation that McLaren will be stepping up to the top class of sports car racing. Now, you know, has there been a full announcement? No, there hasn't. What am I expecting? I'm expecting that it's absolutely going to happen, and absolutely going to happen likely for 2027. So that's good news with another manufacturer almost certain this stage to come. What else can we say about McLaren? It's really sad that they've lost both those customers, GTD and GTD Pro, for IMSA. Do I believe we'll see McLaren racing in the GT3 classes in North America this season? No, I don't. But we are going to see a McLaren for the very first time in the European Le Mans Series this season, with United Autosport stepping in, adding an effort alongside their already confirmed WEC program. So there are some high-profile programs happening. I think you're going to see more as time comes on. I know they're talking to some very high-profile teams and trying to win them over to the Woking way. But sadly, it looks as if, for the moment at least in 2025, IMSA will not be one of those programs, MP.
Yeah. Sad, because I thought the car is really cool.
Yes.
The teams running them, really cool. But you would have to look at the business side of things on the pro level, right? Rarely do we get in GTD Pro pure independent teams fully funding their own season-long programs. Not saying it doesn't happen, just saying the vast majority are true works teams. So if that isn't continuing to happen, that's where my mind goes first. I wonder if the business arrangement was as favorable as some of the other ones with other manufacturers. Not saying it wasn't, just saying that's the first question that comes to mind. And Then you have the numbers side, Graham, where you go, well, until Pfaff started running a car in 2024, there was a single McLaren running in WeatherTech Championship, that being Inception.
Yep.
Did a fine job with it, but when you are the only team running the only model of whichever manufacturer, and there are at least two of other models, if not lots more than that from other brands, it's just a big mountain to climb technically to remain competitive with them. And here come the police, apparently, to arrest somebody in the background.
It's not that bad a podcast. It's not that bad a podcast.
We try not.
Involved.
Let's move on to good old Pratt and Miller. Let's see. JD55 says, with Pratt & Miller launching a P2 program, are they gearing up for a hypercar/GTP program? Other teams like Penske, Alpine, and Hyundai did similar things. Could they bring, say, Ferrari over to IMSA or some other unannounced project? And what else? We have Esteban asking, can we see another race program for Nico Verone alongside GTD Pro in IMSA endurance races? Nico, part of the Pratt & Miller Corvette GTD Pro effort there. I think from our last episode, as my voice is starting to crack, so yeah, I think we are reaching the close to 0%. Did we mention last episode when talking about where Lamborghini's program might end up, so a GTP program might end up in the near future, that Pratt & Miller was a rumored possible destination? So I don't know if that factors into however you might answer.
I think that's fair enough. The answer is, of course, they are looking for those options. There's a number of possibilities, of course, coming forward. You just mentioned McLaren in a couple of years' time. You've got the still unanswered question of where Genesis are going to be going with their program, which they've announced for 2027. I suspect you might see a couple of races earlier than that in North America. 2026 for FIWC with their own factory team. Lamborghini looking for a new home, of course, as well, as we were talking last time out, MP. But yeah, for a team with the status and the heritage of Pratt Miller, of course they're going to be looking for that step, as are many, many others. As for the Nico Verone bit, I think you'll likely see Nico subject to some pretty exciting stuff that's going on in his life at the moment, with potential in the European Le Mans Series again. He was certainly the rookie test and testing a couple of cars there, including a P2 car. He's raced with Air Corsa in the Oreca before. We know as well that alongside his program in the Asian Le Mans Series, where he was racing last weekend, he then went off and was testing an F2 car. Now, this all comes on the back of excitement at home in Argentina around Franco Colapinto. And what tends to happen in some of these marketplaces is when you've got a searing young talent, it tends to interest those people with deep pockets and the ability to offer sponsorship opportunities. And I had a quick chat with a source close to Nico Verone, and what they told me was, once that process started rolling in Argentina, questions started to be asked about other prospects, and a number of people were pleasantly surprised to find that, yes, there was another major prospect, young prospect with Argentine heritage, and that he would be looking for the opportunity for a high-profile program sooner rather than later. So hopefully Nico will find his way to another couple of opportunities. I know you wrote something in a racer back in June, July, MP, about him being interested in IndyCar. F2 now, a test there, and who knows beyond that. But whoever picks up Nico, they could do far worse.
Yeah, we like Nico. He's a good kid.
We do.
And he's quick like a bunny. Hey, we're got a couple more minutes before we reach the half-hour point, so why don't we extend this just a little bit deeper? Where should we go? Let's go here, because if we don't do something that is from Daniel Summersgill, who kindly puts the questions together for us, we're probably going to be thought of as very poor lads. Our man Daniel Summersgill is inquiring about Le Mans qualifying changes. So, Graham, for folks who don't know, why don't you spell out the changes? But Daniel asks, after you do that, what are your thoughts on the new for 2025 qualifying / hyperpole format for the 24 hours of Le Mans?
Well, I mean, the hyperpole format came in, and I think it's fair to, I certainly was amongst those who was pretty cynical about it to start with, but was a pretty immediate convert to the way this has played out in race week. It debuted, of course, behind closed doors, which was rather a shame because it was a really good session in 2020. But since then, we've had some really spectacular offerings, not least, of course, the hyperpole for hypercar this year, which saw the said Bourdais, it saw the Cadillacs to the fore, and an absolutely fabulous final effort from Kevin Est to grab pole position. So it is proving to be really very popular, both as a TV format and particularly for those standing trackside. For 2025, we're going to see a two-stage knockout format. Top 15 hypercars, 12 LMP2s, 12 LMGT3 cars will advance to a first hyperpole session, and the top 10 hypercars will then compete in a 15-minute final heat to determine the pole setter. It'll be 8 LMP2s and 8 LMGT3s. So it's effectively a two-stage process. It gives us, if you like, more opportunity to see these cars being driven as close to their limits as we're likely to see in Le Mans this week. You know what? I could stand here and be cynical all night about this, but you know what? They got it right the first time. Let's give this one a shot and see how this one actually pans out. I do like to see race organisers evolve formats to try to entertain those that are paying on the gates or paying to watch worldwide the products. And let's hope this produces the entertainment that they're hoping it will. What it should mean is that we've got more people pushing longer on one of the biggest stages of the world. I just don't see a downside to that, MP.
Tends to be my favorite part of a race weekend. The race itself is something we can almost never predict, so you don't know what you're going to get. You do know there's one session during every motor racing event, by and large, where you go, okay, I know what I'm going to get here, and it is going to be awesome, because separate from the dramas of the race itself, strategy, plays, and whatever misfortune or odd things that happen that affect the outcome, for the most part, and some of those things can happen in qualifying too, but for the most part, I love qualifying because it is so pure. We're not sitting here in free practice 1 or 2 questioning, are they pushing to 100%? Are they, teams don't sandbag anymore. Used to be a thing back in the day, but okay, what are they working on? Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. They might just be working on race setup. Well, then indeed, they're not going to be ragging the car to within an inch of its life the entire session. Get into qualifying, there's no question that everybody is going as dang fast as they can. And just from a purity standpoint, that tends to be my favorite session, because it is the reason I think most of us follow this sport. Amazing cars, amazing drivers, and the absolute fastest, bestest they can do in a condensed period of time. It is just so cool. So I love it.
But worth mentioning, by the way, there is one other key change. There's a change across the season in the WEC, which is we are still going to see an LMGT3, the bronze driver, but only in first qualifying. It will be the silver driver for hyperpole, and that includes at the 24 hours of Le Mans. And I think that's to recognise that the commercial weight behind LMGT3 has changed somewhat in this era. Frankly, the sheer cost of LMGT3 means that you've not got terribly many silver drivers not paying their way as well. But what that should mean, MP, is that we should start to see those times being pretty impressive in qualifying in the GT class as well.
Mr. Goodwin, I think that's about all my really sorry face can do for making sounds of any value if we just kid ourselves and say there was any value beforehand. Before we go and before you sign us off, tell us about what's coming up here with more of our fun getting to know the fine folks at FEL Motorsports and the Sports Car Championship Canada, all of which is being featured on dailysportscar.com.
Well, we will. I mean, and with apologies to listeners, as you can obviously hear, MP's struggling with voice. We will get a few more of your questions in another Week in Sports Cars early next week. And if MP isn't feeling better, we'll drag Stephen Kilby from his rest bed post-season to grab some of those. As for our friends at the SCCC, the Sports Car Club of Canada, RJ O'Connell is busy on the phone every week at the moment, catching up with some feature material you'll see on Daily Sports Car throughout December. Latest of them, Jack Bolito, the first of our SCCC alumni columns, two-time GT4 champion for the FEL. And great to see, MP, these young drivers taking their first steps into what I think we could reasonably call a kind of national to international level of motorsport. GT4, it's got to be said, has been a fine format for that. Jack started his career in these two words you've not heard together for a while, a Honda Prelude, built by Multimatic. That's Honda Prelude.
Wow.
Then into Formula 1600 with Brian Graham Racing, and was Rookie of the Year in the Premier class for that one, before stepping into GT4, where he's been racing one of the fabulous Mustangs. And it's great to see a series with ambition pouring resource into developing talent at a national level that they know that if they do the job properly won't stay on a national level. Quite often we see really strong national championships that sometimes profit, sometimes founder, because there's not a route through and out the other end. In every conversation that we've had with the fine folks at SCCC, they know that success for them is going to be garnered by showing that there is a route to stay within Canadian motorsport. But more than that, the opportunities through links they'll make with manufacturers, with teams, that there are going to be opportunities to take a step sideways and upwards at times into GT and touring car racing outside of their homeland for a full season. And there'll be more of that as we develop this relationship moving forward.
Rock on. Take us home, my man.
I will indeed. So thanks again to Daniel Summerskill for dragging together questions in short order. And as I say, we will be getting more of those together for another edition early next week after a bit of shenanigans this weekend. I'm on my travels to Stuttgart tomorrow to Mercedes AMG. Watch this space for what comes from that one. With thanks to Marshall Pruett for dragging himself from his hot lemony drink and the other exciting stuff he's got to do on behalf of clients for what sounds like the remainder of the year. He's been Marshall Pruett. I've been Graham Goodwin. We're going to say thank you to the SCCC and to, to TorontoMotorsports.com, to the Justice Brothers, and of course to Pfaff Technologies. It's a highly Canadian feel to the show these days. This has been the Week in Sports Cars, part of the Marshall Pruett podcast collection, and we will be back with you definitely next week.